And with that said, I would like to introduce our next presenter, Dr. Andrea Málková from Czech Republic. She is the general practitioner specializing in musculoskeletal and integrative medicine, expert in anthroposophical medicine, acupuncture, and oncological support, founder of the Center for Complex Medicine and Viscum Organization for Integrative Center Care. Her presentation is called Mistletoe, Prevention and Treatment of Oncological Disease. Please welcome.
Dobré ráno, vážení přátelé.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will now give you the title of my presentation. It may seem that I will be very serious. The integrative approach towards diseases. If I spoke about mistletoe, just mistletoe alone, which is one of the most potent natural healing herbs against cancer, it will be just taken out of the context. But let's have a look at the situation. What can force one of our cells to stop serving the rest of the organism? What makes it become selfish and serve just its own interest, to deplete the resources of the organism which the cell should be serving actually? If we look at some of the elementary symptoms of an oncologic disease, and if we look at our society, it can just occur to us whether there is not a kind of a correlation between the development of the Western civilization. Each epidemic that pops up at a certain time, does it not really reflect the way we live on this earth? What are the relationships between us? Do we really serve the whole? If we look at who controls our organism and the individual cells, then it's been proven by scientific research that each cell is responsible for itself and shares in maintaining the perfect harmony, the gear set of the organism. There is no control center that would discover that one or two cells have grown too independent and selfish. But this brings about a certain vulnerability, because there can be a cell that will go astray and will become a selfish cell, violating the basic principles of the social behavior of an organism. We could call this phenomenon an isolation phenomenon, which can be also observed in our societies. Even though we look at the past 3 years, how we were bound to stay at home, we had to sever ourselves from the social contacts. This is again a parallel to an oncological disease. And in the past 3 years, the incidence of oncologic diseases has grown substantially. Why is it so? Patients fail to go to the medical checks because this was not possible. Or was it because of other influences? Was it some other diseases? As my colleague, Professor Špičák, said, the oncological diseases are the second major cause of death in the world. I would like to introduce to you the book by Professor Jana Šmardová. I highly recommend to have a look at it. After the break, I will leave it on the table and have a look at it. It will be translated into English. It is titled "What the Tumors Teach Us," the parallels between the behavior of tumors and people. Every tumor has 11 typical features which have been described. It's relatively new, and you can also see the sources where you can find more information if you're interested in that. Unfortunately, going through the individual points, we can't do that because you can find it in the presentation. But if you look at these 11 typical signs or features of a tumor and the 11 typical signs of the civilization, we will find out that this is not accidental, that these two resemble each other. For instance, number one, gaining self-sufficiency in the production of growth signals. If we look at ourselves, each and every one of us, we just keep racing against one another and against ourselves. The more effective, the faster, the better. But that's one of the symptoms of a tumor. Speed, effectiveness, growth. Being slow means controlling the rhythm of one's own life, determining one's own race, and maintaining one's own individuality. This interconnection of haste, loss of self-reflection, morale and accountability can also be seen in the process of cancerogenesis. If we look at the quote by Klaus Schwab, who is the leader of the World Economic Forum, not elected by anyone, he said, "From the world in which the big devours the small, we're being shifted towards the world where the fast devours the slow." Another point, another symptom of an oncologic condition is the creation of metastases, which means social areas in our lives. Insufficient assessment or evaluation of relationship of the home. Healthy cells, in order to survive, must know where is the at home. And the tumorous cells travel independently across the organism, and they can survive far from the home. If we look at the modern society, the liberal society, it is the lack of willingness to stay in a partnership, to live in a family. It's loneliness. Let's come back to our cells. Healthy cells cooperate closely and create a perfectly functioning system. Tumorous cells work for their own purpose, for their own benefit. They misuse the common resources. They don't stick to rules. They are typical imposters. What can tumors tell us? They bring the testimony about the importance of accountability, respect for others, adequacy, and the importance about the importance of the society. It's about the quest for equilibrium between our own uniqueness and our insertion in the entirety. Professor Málková pointed at 3 levels of responsibility or accountability against the development of the social cancer. Don't be, in inverted commas, the cancerous person. Don't cooperate with cancerous persons. Share in the maintaining of healthy social environment. Don't tolerate imposters. Preserve your free will and be interested in the entirety, in the whole. If we come back to the physiology of our nature, and if we look at men's and the metabolism of a man and of the herbs, and if we recall what we were taught in elementary schools, because despite all modern research, we may have forgotten some of the basics, we can see that the metabolism of a plant is inverted to the metabolism of a man. A plant needs water and CO2, sunlight, and it emits oxygen. The metabolism in a man consumes oxygen and exudes or emits water and CO2. That's what the nature disposed of and provided for. We need healthy food. We need to live in harmony with nature. We need to use or to eat food which has not been processed. We thus give the body what it needs, just like you give good fuel to your engine and it will work. And if we don't use good fuel, then something goes wrong with the engine. If we look at a healthy cell, which uses metabolism for which it is predestined. You can see that the tension is of 70 microvolts. It gains energy using oxygen in presence of cytochrome oxidases, and it produces 674 calories. It has a lot of energy. It can go ahead with differentiation. It can serve the multicellular organism. It is sustainable. As opposed to that, a cancerous cell uses the anaerobic part of the cellular cycle, glycolysis. It lives out of sugar. Otto Warburg was granted a Nobel Prize for this discovery. We're not sure whether this discovery has been properly used in modern medicine and in the new forms of examinations where the cancerous cells emit glucoses, and we can find out where the focal points are. This is the tension of the sick cell. It's 19 millivolts as opposed to 70, and it produces 28 calories as opposed to 674 in a healthy cell. What is the cause that the cell decides to change its metabolism and to serve its cell? It can't it be the chronic lack of energy, stress, poor nutrition, which damage the metabolism of the cell? It's that the cell feels menaced and it switches over to an emergency system. It vegetates in a degenerative way, and since it's afraid of death, because it has lack of energy, it keeps multiplying. If we look at stress, if we live in acute stress, we have the system of adrenaline which is switched on. And you can see the authors, so you can once again read the authors who made a research in this. Adrenaline increases the blood pressure, it improves the circulation of blood in the most important organs, and it mobilizes immunity. When our adrenaline system is depleted, noradrenaline is activated. All the causes which can amount in the cell feeling menaced and switches over to the emergency regime. For instance, the industrial food with a lack of vitamins be one of the reasons for that. Excessive stress and too much acidity in the organism and others. This is information which you can find in this book. It's both in Czech and German by Professor Thomas Kreutz. Now, what's the progress in the treatment of cancer and why is it so small? We might expect that, given all the research, we could have been doing better. We could be doing better. The classical, conventional treatment tries to solve the problem on the material level without any individual approach. So the spiritual and mental approach is not there. If we look at the spirituality which makes the difference, that's the interest in the world. It's the adoption of impulses from the environment. And the spirituality also integrates the inner treatment of these relationships. If this is underestimated, if this is too weak, islands of solitary cells emerge. Look at healing substance, which is perhaps one of the most important. It's mistletoe. It's a drug for the body, for the soul, and for the spirit. It is based on the anthroposophic medicine, and the goal is to reinforce the vital forces of a man. It is applied in ampoules, subcutaneously, or in pills. In Switzerland and in Germany, there are clinics which apply this drug, and in these countries, it is even covered by the general health insurance. Unfortunately, we have no time to talk more about mistletoe, but you can find plenty of information about it in the literature. We have a book. I will leave it on the table. It is in English, in German, and in Czech. And I would like to pay respect to Professor Šmardová, who's unfortunately passed away, is no longer with us. And I want to read you a very important communication. We people are not cells. We've been endowed with the capacity of perceiving, thinking, and sensing, to imagine and dream. As opposed to cells, we have the capacity of aspiring for more and for going further. We have the capacity and the possibility and the duty to apply our free decision. We have the capacity of seeing forward. We can imagine what we are a part of. We can decide how we will treat the project, given what we have, all these capacities. Don't let others convince us that we are mere cells, just obedient parts of the set of gears of the complex system. Let us carry on with our dreams, with humility, with due regard to the common project. Let us defend the common project, and let us follow all this with the goodwill to live full and fruitful life, and that our overarching interests have a common point. Let us not miss that common point. Thank you for your attention.
That was Dr. Andrea Málková. We thank you so much, Dr. Málková. And from her presentation, it just brings this one question to my mind, many, but this one important question. What am I doing? How can I create a better environment within myself, but also outside myself? And what kind of environment am I creating within myself and outside myself? I will leave that as that.